this is Mary Harris from Paper Crow.
I recently went to an antique store and I got like a bundle of um, different postcards. They kind of bundle up the leftovers that no one buys, and it's 100 postcards and 100 envelopes and 100 stamps, I think, and it's just $6. So it's a great deal for getting older postcards, but there are a lot of postcards in here that maybe won't really be useful in the types of projects that I do. Sometimes because they're not vintage enough, or maybe they're a little too city or touristy for the kinds of things that I do. So I've taken some of them and made projects out of them where I can highlight the postcard part but maybe not use the front of it, or only use a portion of the front of it in the image. Like something like this, I don't know that I would really use that in any of my art. Some of them are old enough. This one's kind of an odd one. Like the 90s ones and some of the late 80s ones don't really fit my style. Like this one right here is too city and touristy. I wouldn't really use it for the types of projects I usually do, except that look at this aged message here. This part I can still use even if the image itself doesn't really fit. So here's a few examples of what I've done with them. This is a double postcard where I have the writing and I've made little booklets, and it's just sewn to material on each side. And then these are each little pockets, but it has an image behind it, so if you put something in it, I'll steal one from here. If you put something in it, you can cover the image, but then when people pull it out, it still has some joy to it, or like a little surprise. This book is another variation where I used one postcard and I covered it with vellum. This is material with vellum glued to it, and I stitched the book together. The vellum covers the image but gives a hint of the image. And then I decided to put a window so it kind of looks like you're looking out. And I'm not sure if you can see from there, but there's birds flying in the background. And I put some material over the bottom because it had like brightly the name of a city. It was a pretty tacky postcard. And this is the back of the postcard. This one wasn't written on, so it's not quite as exciting. But I had some older papers and an envelope from the same pack that I got from the antique store. And then I had some little tucks to put in there. And this is the other side of the postcard, and you can see I did the window the same style on this side, and this one has like a sunset, but it just has a little bit of a hint through the vellum of the postcard. And then these are just straight postcard tucks, like they could go in a bigger journal. So I kept the writing exposed, but it's stitched to a fabric, and I made a tuck to put, you could put any kind of like a little notebook in there or a bookmark. I've done some altered cards here that are still finding homes. This is a different version of the same kind of thing. There's a pocket in the back for a tuck, and then there's also a little pocket here that has a different fabric underneath it. And this is just a mini photo from a antique store. The fabric pockets are a little harder to tuck, but they're still cute. And this also shows the back. I used some Distress Oxide ink and then sprayed it with water to kind of add some, because this was a very new looking postcard, but I wanted to make it look a little bit more artsy. So those are the projects I've done so far. I thought today I would start by showing you how I made this little mini book. I think if I did all of them on one video, you would be bored out of your mind. So we'll start with just this little project. I have these different images to choose from that are not quite junk journal worthy by themselves. So I want to go for a smaller version. This one could work. I want it to be smaller, but also have some, like once this is folded, I can do something with that image in the background. The ones with the words on the front are even harder to use, but that's what this was though, was one that had the words. So we'll start with this postcard. It has writing on the back, which is perfect. And I'm going to start by folding it over. Sounds like a small thing, but we need it for measuring anything else that we're going to put on here. So now I don't use a bone folder with this because it will, these newer postcards have like a coating on them. So I try not to fold this too sharply because I don't want to split the postcard cover or coating. So we have the startings of our book right here. I picked out some scrap papers that I have just kind of on hand. And I did have a piece of vellum left over from another project, which I think will work as long as I add some material to it the way that I did with this one. So with this one I had it all one piece, but I can split it in half and use fabric to bind it, and then I can make this fit. So I'm going to cut it in half, and you could use a fancy cutter if you wanted to, but I'm just going to free for all it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I could use some fabric, or I could use some vintage papers. I have some of this. I did a master board on some fabric, so that could work for binding it together. And then it has a stiffer cover because this has paint on it. Just because this is the outside of the book, it helps to have it a little bit more sturdy, because I actually stitched through it, so it binds the book and can take a little bit of abuse. I'm going to put some Fabri-Tac on here. I want to make sure I rub the Fabri-Tac in because it does kind of show through the vellum. Not a ton, but enough where if you don't rub it in, it will bug you, or it will bug me. So I'm going to stick some vellum to each side and try to keep that line going so they're even. I might not get it perfect, but that's okay. And I could put some fabric on the inside too to make it look a little bit more clean. I'm going to add a little bit of Fabri-Tac here. With the other one, because I kept it solid, I just used one piece of fabric. So if you have some vellum you want to just cut or rip to the size, you could always do that. I like to recycle all the little extras, and I don't care if they're like wrinkled like this, because really the aged stuff looks the best. I'm going to cut off the excess here. So we have the beginnings of a cover. So when it's stitched on, it'll go over the city, and you can kind of see the city through the vellum. And it gives it a classier little look. Okay. Now I think I want to stitch through this to put some decoration on it before I put the book together. So I'm going to set this aside because just a little bit of stitching can really add to it. And let's figure out paper-wise what we want for our pages. This could be folded in half. This is a receipt. The only thing, this has carbon on it, so you'd want to have a page in between. So if someone writes on it, it's writing onto another page instead of all over itself or whatever. So we could do something like this and leave the carbon exposed, so then when someone writes on it, you have like different types of writing on there. It'd be a little bit shorter than the book, but I think that's okay. I have these sort of half pages that could be taped together or bound with like paper. So like I could take some paper and combine them. So then you end up having the two pages. It'd have to be ripped down a little bit. That's a bit big. So maybe if this is folded, I'm going to fold it over this so I can get the right size. I did it a bit crooked on purpose because I think on this side I can add some other paper to finish the page. I'm going to do, well, let's see. I kind of like that image. I don't want to lose it, so maybe I'll put it on this side. And it doesn't have to be a full thing. It could just be a little torn kind of thing, just to add some interest. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm trying to be more decisive when I do these and videotape them because I listen back to what I've done before and all the deciding takes up half of the video. Let's see if I can get this to stick with that much. I think that will work. Okay, I'm gonna rip this off. We can age that edge later. So we have a little bit of interest there. I'm gonna do the same thing with this. I'm gonna fold it with the postcard so that it helps me get close to the right size. And I'm gonna fold it a bit off center. See if we can do something like this. Then this will also need to be off center so it doesn't dirty the wrong pages here if someone writes on them. I think I'm gonna rip that end off just so that it doesn't overlap. Ooh, it's kind of fragile paper, but it's the beauty of vintage papers. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3 pages on each side. If we want to put a quick pocket in, we can use an envelope. I have this is a box of the different mailings and things that I got from these packs. We could use something like this and fold it in half. I really like these airmail envelopes. I like the way they look. I'm not sure what my attraction is to them, but I need to make sure that it is as short as the postcard that I'm using. So I don't want to rip up the envelope. I just want to fold it in half so I can still use it as a pocket. So that one would work. Or let's see if we can find one that's too big. That's a bit too small. A bit too big. Here's a smaller airmail one. But it's long. These little packs are so amazing. For $6, all of these little, they just become artistic little pockets for all my projects. I like the airmail. I mean, that one says airmail, but, oh, I don't know. Maybe I will go with that one. Okay. Set these aside. If I can get them all back in there now. Okay. So this one is from 1980. So you can see they're not as old as a lot of the things that sell at the antique store. So it makes sense to me that they ended up packaging them and selling them as one big cheap pack, because 1980 is, although it's old, it's not as old as some of the stuff we gravitate to in junk journaling. Alright, so we have the start of our little booklet. We have some pre-made pockets because the tops of these are slit open. And, oh, you know what? I think I might reverse that pocket so the inside you can see the writing, the address and stuff. Let's try that. Yeah, that works. And we could even, to keep this image, we want to flip that way, but I think I'll do that and then this. So we have the airmail pockets kind of separated and this full image you can see in the center. Those are the little details that I pick apart. I don't know why. So now I'm going to do any stitching that I want to do. And then I'll stitch the whole book together. So in the end it will be assembled like this. So I'll be right back after I do some stitching. Well, it's actually not too bad, but if I can put something behind it, it'll pop more. Let's see what we can, could be just some lacy stuff like that. I wonder if I have a lighter one, because black is not quite. Some yellow here. Since it's on the cover, it can be a little bit bulkier, but yellow might not. No, I don't like that. I think the black looks better. I have so many random things here. That doesn't really go with the colors. I could use another chunk of this and just have it behind it. Then I wonder if it'll, let's just see if it will work or if it'll make it look like too much. I try to rip these when I do the background as much as possible, so it's less I have to rough them up. The straight edges always end up looking like they don't fit. Alright, let's see. Well, that could work. What do you think? I hate to lose their feet, but maybe if I put it up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Somewhere between their hands and their feet. Okay, we're gonna go for it. Again, you'll see it from the other side, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. Come on, gloopy glue. And I'm just using Fabri-Tac for my glue. I've started to just use Fabri-Tac because it's easier to not have to switch back and forth. I also have glitter glue, which works great for paper on paper, but I use so much fabric and like other weird surfaces like the vellum that Fabri-Tac ends up being the best bet for most of it when you're going back and forth anyway, or constantly sticking two different surfaces together. Okay, we're going between the legs and hands. There. Oh, I love it. So we have a little Valentine's book. It has a cityscape, some pages to write in, some pockets. Now you can add a lot with just by putting some tucks in here with some lace in them. I have some pre-made tucks that I just do kind of in mass make, so I have them when I'm doing projects like this. So I'll just show you kind of how it comes together once you get tucks with different laces on the top. And you could put like sayings, inspiration, or photos. A lot of times I'll make tucks just out of a photo with just by punching a hole and putting like a brad in there. There we go. So there's our postcard books. Thanks for joining me today, and have fun on your crafting adventures.